The more things change, the more they stay the same. We're here today to talk about And If You Know the History, a play that centres on a time of turmoil at Celtic Football Club, of a time when the relationship between the club and the fans was seriously strained, and a time when fans simply didn't know what to expect next. Jim Orr, is this play set in the 90s or November 2025?
Oh, 90s, although the similarities are very similar. The AGM that we've just had was absolutely bonkers. And actual fact, all the stuff that happened that led to Fergus actually kicked off from a bonkers AGM when Brian Dempsey meant to be ratified onto the board and wasn't. And then I think that started a whole chain of events. You had Brian on and part of your battle to save Celtic. And I think that he's quite a humble guy, and I think he did a whole lot of stuff behind the scenes that nobody's seen. I think he was the guy that kept things going. And when push came to shove, when the club was about to go bust, who did they call? Call Brian Dempsey. We're about to go bust tomorrow, Brian, can you save us? And the guy that contacted Fergus and put things in motion and went. So, yeah, last Friday's AGM was a bit bonkers, but we're in a different position just now to what we were back then, because back then was a bit of a ticking time bomb with having to build a new stadium and the club's in debt, whereas the club is completely opposite from that just now, and it's going to be difficult for the fans to achieve what they'd like to achieve, because we're dealing with a different animal altogether.
Yeah, I spoke to someone who's involved with the collective at one of the recent meetings, and he said this is so different because back then in the 90s it was existential. Celtic were facing disappearing, full stop, whereas this time it's almost the opposite problem. You've got more money than you've ever had before. Des, welcome to Celtic Exchange. Jim's a frequent flyer here, so no such introduction for him, but great to have you here.
It's my pleasure.
What's your own take? As I say, there's certainly similarities between now and back then, but where do you see the big differences in that fight and this current fight?
It's history repeating itself to a certain extent. However, I think at the moment this is a picnic compared to back then. I'm not just blatantly plugging this show, by the way, but this is what happened back in the 90s. For those of a certain vintage, you'll remember that the 90s weren't just about Oasis and Blur and the Spice Girls and Take That and Trainspotting, the brilliant movies and that. The 90s was Celtic were fifth in the league. Billy McNeil was manager the second time round, stuff like that. And as you quite rightly pointed out, Celtic were 8 minutes away from hitting the iceberg. That was it. We're going. Now they're just not spending. Well, the complaint is they've got all that money. Why are you not going in and spending during transfer windows and all that? So it's kind of the same, but it's different, if you know what I mean. And back then it was tougher because they didn't have WhatsApp groups and all that to set up all these meetings. So it was, fair play. And they had to give out flyers and posters and meetings, town halls and phone landlines and all that.
Yeah.
Now there's podcasts and there's all these things, hundreds. So it is similar. It's as if we've been down this road before, but you're dealing with a different animal altogether.
Yeah.
And Mr. Desmond, these were just old men who were Celtic through and through. However, they weren't like Dermot Desmond. He's no nonsense now, as we learned from his blistering attack on Brendan Rodgers,
as we know.
And his stunt's not too bad at it either.
Yeah, I think one thing is similar between the two of them is actual word that gets cast to the Celtic supporters, and that's entitlement. The Celtic fans are accused of being entitled. We haven't won a trophy, and the fans go mad. You're entitled, whatever. But I think both of these gentlemen, actually, you could accuse them of entitlement. In fact, the Kellys and the Whites, they were there because they inherited their shares, and they would never give up those shares, and they would rather Celtic did exist, and they felt entitled. And we have a current situation where we've got a billionaire owner who thinks, well, I've got all this money, I'm pretty entitled, I can do what I want. So entitlement, I think, is the cause of both of those things.
Also, do you know what's interesting? There are similarities when, like, back then, if somebody came out with a banner, they would say, these are just a minority. It's always a minority of troublemakers, those meddling little kids and all that, right? And they're still saying that. They're still saying this is a minority. They don't realise there are, tens of thousands who are not happy with certain things and all that, right? Yeah. Rightly or wrongly. But it's that when they come out with this it's a minority. It's not really, that's a wee bit insulting. But that happened then, when somebody would come out with the sack the board and all that stuff. That's not the real Celtic fans, and they're coming out with that now. Desmond's son as well.
I also think, is this a button?
I love this invisible buzzer. Sorry.
Button. I also think it's actually worse now than it was then, because I think they were doing their best back then, but they weren't capable of, bringing in money, saving the club, building a stadium. they were doing their best, but they weren't capable of doing that. Whereas we don't think, or I think a lot of fans don't think the people who are running the club just now are doing their best.
Yeah, we've kind of boiled it down, and a lot have as well, to just the club not showing the same ambition as the fans have. And I listened to you on Sports Sound just a few weeks ago, Jim, and you talk about that word entitlement, because whenever you do those types of things, one of the first things the interviewer will say, surely, Celtic are in a great place, 13 leagues out the last 14, you generally dominate in Scotland, blah, blah, blah. What's all the fuss about? And all the fuss for me, and I've said this a few times now, is I think any football fan of any club is well entitled, to use that word, to want their club to be as ambitious as they can be with the resources they have available. Nobody's asking Celtic to spend 100 million on strikers or whatever. We're just asking them to push the boat out and be ambitious in Europe and try and see a wee bit beyond just winning the league title and just being a point ahead of Rangers. But when you do come out with those kind of things, and I know you get pushed back on the radio, it's the entitled word gets thrown back at you, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But I think you want anything to be just the best it can be. As I said, and as you said, we're not going to win the Champions League. We're not going to sign £20 million players. We know what our best could be, and it's currently not where it's at. And I think one of the things that's whenever the dominant shareholder, try to think of the right word there, the dominant shareholder is sort of pushed on this, he'll say, count the trophies. Basically, count the trophies. But the trophies are all domestic, basically. And if you try and talk maybe his language is money. How much do you win, money-wise, for winning the league, or winning the cup, winning the League Cup? But £4 or £5 million a season, something like that. If you go back 10 years, well, 7 out of 9 we haven't qualified for the Champions League. So there's 7 seasons and we've won the league. So you can say, look at those trophies. We won however many trophies there. What's that in pound notes? So say it is 7 times 4 million. Say it's 30 million. But what have we lost out? We've lost down 7 times 40 million over here. So money-wise, it's not about looking at trophies. It's also, I also get a bit of kind of grief on the fact that I use a phrase that's like having an under 18 team and an under 12 league. And I don't mean any disrespect to any teams, any players, anything, but if they're an under 12 league and they parachute an under 18 team into that, they're going to win that league. And that's because they're bigger and they're stronger and they're going to win the league. And is it an achievement? Of course it's an achievement. To win anything is an achievement. But if you're the size of club that you are, then you should be winning those league. And I don't think putting that forward is the big achievement that they're making out. I think if we got to a semi-final of the Europa League, then you can say, fine. And we have chats about what was your favourite season in the last 25 years? The Wolf season.
Yeah, and we never won anything.
Opinion. And everything's about opinions.
Yeah.
For me, that was so exciting. You were going toe-to-toe with Liverpool's and the Blackburns and Celtic Eagles and all these kind of teams, and you almost won it. And I know we lost the league in the last day of the season, we lost the League Cup, but that was a magical season and we won nothing. So it's actually, for me, it's not about winning things, it's about trying to beat expectations. What's your expectation? I think Celtic are the most, in any metric you want to use, are the biggest club in the country by miles. And even if you say, well, what about the team across the city? Well, they've just posted a loss of £14 million. So how are they? So, and then you compare yourself to Livingston, St Johnstone, Dundee. So for me, it's about beating expectations. Have we beaten expectations in the last 10, 15 years? No, we haven't.
You've also got, just on the back of Ross Desmond's explosive statement, as you say, he kind of tried to temper enthusiasm with regard to European football. I can't remember the word he used, but it was something like that's kind of unattainable for us now, something of that nature. And it's like, well, hold on a minute. Bodo Glimt got to the semi-finals of the Europa League last year. Are we bigger than Bodo Glimt? I think so. They play in a 12,000-seater stadium in a town that holds 50,000 people, all those things. And I think you need to always show that ambition. We might not win the Europa League, we might not win the Champions League, but you need to drive towards it. Aim for these things and see where you land.
Also, that the game against Bayern Munich away, that's it. That was when we went toe to toe with a brilliant team who were worth hundreds of millions.
Yeah.
I mean, right, but I mean, ran over the top of them the first half. They were looking good. Right now, that's the moment where you're thinking, right, that's it. Why don't we start building from this position? Let's do it. Come on, you can do it. And then within a few months, no, that's it. Players were away again. You're thinking, was that less than a year ago when we actually went to their stadium and took them to?
It's incredible how quickly and how starkly we've fallen. That was in February. This is November.
That's incredible.
Do you know what it feels like? a decade ago, but actually it was this.
That was my argument. I was talking to fans of other teams, Rangers, Aberdeen, Hearts. One was like a big comedy night the other night there, and they were all asking, saying, "What you going to moan about? What you going to moan about? You're going to win the league every year. What you moaning about? You?" And I says, "That's what we're talking about. We proved we could mix it with the best in Europe, and then what do? We just go, well, that's about as good as it gets, and then just get rid of our best players, and we do that all the time.
We seem to do a bit of boom and bust.
Oh.
Don't we? It's David Lowe that uses the example. Celtic frequently take you to the top of the hill, and then you go, "This is great. We can keep going up this hill.
Yeah,
we'll just come down the other side."
Feast and famine.
Thank you very much.
Famine.
I think this season,
Yeah.
University challenge.
I've got a buzzer you don't have. That's
No, I want one.
Can't get it's mine. So I think this season will end up okay. I think we'll eventually win the league
And the Europa League.
No, I think that's a bit too far. But if we don't, and we start to look back on this season at the end of the season, and if we don't have a successful season, previous manager said something in the lead up to Champions League qualifiers. What we don't want to do is manufacture our own stress.
Yeah.
And I think that was a very important 4 words. And I think, and we're talking about history of the club, Celtic have forever manufactured your own stress, do it time and time again. And when they do that, it just makes life a bit more difficult. Should we have beat Almaty 100%? Well, you have to blame the manager, you have to blame the players for that. But did we have the best possible players in place before the game? No, we didn't.
No.
And therefore, you have to blame the people who actually run the club. And that's about manufacturing your own.
I remember talking here in the summer on one of the episodes about the fact that we had gone toe-to-toe with Bayern Munich in February. We'd sold Nicholas Kuhn for 18 million. We had 10 million for Kyogo. With all this money spun about, I thought, this is great, because we'll definitely invest that money in the summer. We'll definitely get a striker and a right winger. We'll smash through the qualifiers and we'll do the Champions League all over again, and we'll even get beyond Bayern Munich this time. You were so excited about what the potential of the current season was at that time, and for it to play out in the way it has been quite stark. Let's bring it back to the play. So, and if you know the history, certainly based, is it across 6 seasons from around about 88 to...
Yep. It's, I'm going to stop doing that, sorry. Basically it starts off, you've seen it.
I've seen it.
Indeed, you've seen
But
it.
I'm asking for the people who have not seen it.
Of course. So basically, it's a number of stories kind of linking together. The main story is about a family supporting, Celtic supporting family, the mum, teenage son and her dad, and we sort of follow them from we've just won the double in 88 through to game is over, the Rebels have won, and how they feel and what it was like to be a Celtic fan back then. And as Des says, it's a piece of, now it's a piece of cake compared to what it was back then. And at the start, we've just won the double, so the kind of older fan, what's not to like, the Celtic, brilliant, etc. But the younger boy, teenager, he's buying Not the View. He's aware of all the stuff that's going behind the scenes. He's a bit wary, and he says something like pretty near the start as well. Hopefully, we can build position of strength for a change. And the grandfather's, you're never happy. And then you know what happens next. We don't build from a position of strength, because everyone loves that team, the Centennial double team. And how much do we spend in that summer? 88, hardly anything.
Yeah.
And then a few weeks into the season, we're getting hammered 5-1 at Ibrox. And that's the start of 9 in a row. Once that happens, bang. Fast forward the following season, you've got the Mo Johnson debacle. He legally signed for us, push it through, do something. So that summer of 88, we manufactured our own stress. Letting Mo Johnson go, we manufactured our own stress. And then we sacked Billy Mayo and appoint Liam Brady, who's never managed a team. We manufactured our own. So all through that period, we keep manufacturing our own stress. Yeah. So we follow these 3 members of the family, basically. And the mum's pretty neutral at the start, but as the season goes on, she's more and more towards the younger guy. How are we going to get this money back? How are we going to... But the old guys, they win a few leagues, we win a few leagues. It'll be all right. Based on what?
Yeah.
And then, as you know yourself, every season, in the centenary season, we'd done up the front of the stand and into debt for the first time. We'd never had an overdraft at that point in time. So the end of that season, we're 2 million overdraft. Next season, 3, 4, 5. So we owe her this money. And then you've got the Hillsborough disaster. The 2 disasters feature, and actually those 2 disasters shape where Celtic are now. Because the Ibrox disaster, horrible, horrible thing, 66 people dead. And we do a kind of, between each scene, there's a kind of musical kind of songs of the time and some photographs. We do one about the Ibrox disaster, which is really, really sad.
Yeah.
And what happened after that, Wally Waddles, who's the manager, said, that ain't going to happen again. How are you going to do that? We're going to build North Sea Stadium. Now, for supporters of my vintage, you're thinking, what? And All Season Stadium. So by 81, they'd done that. They've got this All Season Stadium. And what Celtic's response, Celtic fans like to stand, always like to stand, so forget that. You then fast forward to the Hillsborough disaster. Again, 96, 97 people eventually lost their life, tragedy. What happens then? The tail of the report comes in that says that all top flight clubs in the UK, you have to have an all-season stadium by 1994. So that's a game changer as well, because there's a ticking clock then. So not only do you have the board who are doing their best, but they are not entrepreneurs, they're not businessmen, they're not financially wealthy, doing their best, which isn't good enough. You're into debt, into debt, into debt. How can they build a stadium? And they bring Brian Dempsey onto the board. And you think, well, that's the guy that's going to solve the problem. And he's got a plan to up to Rob Royston, which I think is up.
Yeah.
Is that what you say?
That's
Which was
going
going to build.
yeah. Thought you just found that out.
No, I mean the stadium.
I'm right there, right.
No, it just occurred to me that
That's
basically where Hugh Steve's actual stadium, is it?
goalposts are right behind my back.
Right. So he's got Rob Royston, he's got a plan, etc. He joins the board, whatever it was, May 1990, and then you fast forward to October 1990, and then it's an AGM, and it's going to be ratified, put onto the board, and then Michael Kelly, Chris White go behind his back and get him punted. And if you're Brian Dempsey, you must be furious. You know, big Celtic fan, he's on the board. You must be looking around at these guys thinking, a couple of years I'll be in charge of this place because, you know, I can buy and sell these guys. They've got the land. And obviously, not everyone thought he was the answer. And the same with Fergus. When Fergus came, you know, some people thought good guy, some people thought bad guy. He's got all the answers. Or we hope he's got all the answers. There's a plan in place, which is better than no plan. And then bang, his world collapses at that point. And that's why in the play, at the end of the first scene, the character Des plays, which we're going to talk about in a minute, he's informing the family about he's just back for the AGM. And he's talking about, you know, Dempsey been bumped for the board. And we've got a cup final 2 days later, and the old guy saying, well, that's not important. Cup final on Sunday, that's the most important. And he says, no, what happened tonight will have severe ramifications. They have messed with the wrong. Can I swear? They've messed with the wrong fucking guy.
If you like.
They've messed with the wrong fucking guy, and they're going to pay for it. Now, Brian Dempsey would never say something like that out loud, but I'm thinking he must have felt like that.
Yeah.
And I think he's the guy from that night. The game is over. The Rebels have won. I think no one has spent as much time, energy, and money, Brian Dempsey, making that happen.
Yeah.
And then they said that when it came to about to go bust, and Kevin Kelly, who's the chairman, was apparently sitting watching Champions League football on a Wednesday night, thinks, I better phone somebody because we're going to go bust tomorrow. Hi, Brian, we've a bit of a problem. That's a problem. So and then Dempsey takes over, gets McCann, whatever. So that's the family story. Des plays. What do you want to do?
Yeah.
So that's all the factual stuff, right? That's the whole jigsaw of that, and that's what happened. And everything is told the way exactly it happened. You know, from
it's a comedy, sorry.
Right. So basically, that it tells you from that game in the centenary year right up to 8 minutes from the brink, everything that happened. You see it all the way through this is where the comedy and the fantasy comes into it, right? Now I play. Basically, imagine, brother, it is fantasy, it is comedy, and it's feel good. And in times of adversity, humour is always born, and that's when we need it. That's why all these fanzines come out, Not the View and all that, and Winter Tim, right? So basically, I rescue Celtic, I save Celtic. Forget Brother Walfred, right? I know Brother Walfred, and me and him are going about together. But Brother Walfred is like Smeato. He takes the credit, right? Right, Smeato won't be watching this. We know he supports Brother lot, so. Right? So he takes the credit. No his fault, but he's not in the same league as me. I'm a bit of a kind of a too much carry on the head, flawed genius, brilliant accountant, right? My name's Tam, but I'm the real man that saved Celtic, right? You know how like the elf saved Christmas and all that? I saved Celtic, and I'm brilliant at it. But I get pumped years ago because I was just too much carry on my head. I drank too much. I'm a ladies' man. I'm always too, I take my eye off the ball and all that, right? But so I kind of get moved in. I get suddenly appear from nowhere in the mid-90s, and it's funny because I report back to God in one scene, and God's going, so what's life like in the 90s? I'm like, I'm doing it Parkhead, and everybody must be quite athletic. They're running about, they've got trackies on, all the wee guys, they're brilliant, but they all speak a different language. I didn't realise that. They're all like, oh, big chap, do you want me to watch your motor, you rocket? What are you talking about, you fucking dafty? I said, so they speak this language, and then he's asking me all about, you know, what's happening, who's the sports personality of the year? Chris Eubank. I can't understand what he says either. This man, he said my mother's a boxer. Why did this man, he say these things about my family? Right? Did you watch the box sets I gave you? Oh, brilliant, Rocky. Do you know Polly?
the 80 and the yo, the Mickey, yeah. I came with the shot about them and the Valoo. You ain't getting no shot. So this is me, full of Carry On, and I kind of come. So everybody's in it. There's Billy Connolly. Isn't it brilliant? A wee red, white, and blue strip. Is that right, you mad fuckers? Bringing this out, people's. And all that. And Alan Partridge. Here's the power with China in your hand. All these things in the 90s. You think the 90s was just there. You go, 90s, Oasis, all that thing with dance music and all that, right? But no, 35 years ago was 1990. That is frightening. 35 years ago. So it's like in the 80s that your mum and dad talking about the 50s, like years ago. So think, that time, there wasn't, as I say, there wasn't WhatsApp groups, there wasn't mobile phones on that. So this guy comes and he has to do it all. But he's basically, let's just say he's like the conscience of Fergus McCann, like Pinocchio and Jimmy into Cricket, right? He's a man who inspires and does all the hard work and all that. It's fantasy and it's comedy, but it's brilliantly told. So I take care of all that side.
Just to clarify, Brother Walford did in fact start.
No, we know that Brother Walford. Can I just say that Brother Walford did in fact? But for the purpose of this brilliant production, no, Brother Walford didn't. I'm the man. I'm the unsung hero.
Where does the character of Tam stop and the character or the person that is Des McLean end, or is there a bit of parallels between us?
Well, he says it's. But my wife and my son Harry, they just went, "You're not playing MD. That's just you, full of Carry On. You're always, all voices and jokes and thing, man. Too much Carry On your head. So it was pretty easy. There's about over 25. It's a real trip down 90s nostalgia. God, that's frightening saying that. There's everything, from Jim Bone and Bullseye, as I say to Chris Eubank, to Rab C. Nisbet and James and all that. Yeah, you're right, Rab, a wee bit of swing that, right? You forget the 90s where it's full of, and Jim White's there as well, and John Mackay reporting on that wee shite Morris Johnson signing up, right? So I know that he would be complaining, so he's a Rangers man as well. So there's all these characters from the 90s, but as I say, we take this incredibly, probably the toughest time in Celtic's, like modern history, and you think, and I'm the man who saves them. It's a pure, as I say, fantasy. But then you think, God, how did that? A lot of my mates who came along to see it were like, I didn't realise Celtic were that close to the end, to the brink, 8 minutes, and then this, obviously Fergus steps up as it was really down to me, really down to Tam. It wasn't about Tam talking Fergus. So this is another wee kind of story, and you come away and you go, I wonder if Tam. There will be people sitting there pissing in the pavilion going, there was a guy called Tam at a pub quiz. They'll let them think that, but no, it's brilliant fun, and I think you actually seen it when it just came out.
I seen it last year. It was brilliant. It was great, and you're now moving from Webster's, which is a great venue in itself, but you're taking it to the pavilion, Jim.
The Pavilion Theatre, yeah.
That's your proper play right now.
Kind of Wembley or Hampden.
Well, Bendel Bertie went to Pavilion for a whole weekend. The Thursday, the matinee, brilliant, sold it out. Then it went again the following year. Then it went to Vegas. What a playwright this man is. He's the Quentin Tarantino of Celtic plays. There's always a brilliant soundtrack. There's always a kind of madness about it. There's always a weird kind of a twist in it. But it's different. It's not your normal Celtic plays,
You're quite big on the music, Jim, in terms of that nostalgic element. Yeah. You kind of litter music of the 90s throughout the play, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, basically, the plays I've done before, Ben like Bertie, it's about specific time periods, and that does kind of like press the nostalgia button. We did Ben like Bertie, and you talked about Bertie was your dad's, say that in one of the songs.
All these old, it's PJ Proby, some. I mean, all the old, yeah. So it's again, this plays, apart from it's crazy and it's bonkers, very emotional. I mean, there's it was quite funny. Remember when the Hibs beat Rangers? So the matinee, there's always football on. Right. So Hibs had beat Rangers there just during that time in the spring there, and
there was a sad scene.
And there was a really honestly the Sarah McCarthy brilliant, and it's a very emotional scene when I won't give too much away, and the whole audience, all the women are crying at them. And I the front row at the end of the show, I went, "Oh, did you have a wee coupon on Rangers beating Hibs?" Right? And it was just like but it's absolutely hard. So it is a emotional roller coaster because Glasgow punters like a wee greet as well. So very emotional too.
What about your audience, right? So there's a lot of chat just now that the younger generation of Celtic fans only know success, right? They only know Celtic winning the league, give or take that blip during the COVID season. And if you're a youngster in your mid to late teens or even in your 20s, that's all you've ever known. Do you get any of that age demographic along at the show, or is it folks at 40 plus? No, you do get that. So is that an education for those young
12-year-old, 82-year-old? Yeah,
really. We did. You saw Ben like Bradback, and that's number of people who've said to me, took my son along. His son's 15, 16. couldn't understand. Rangers are going for 10 in a row.
Yeah.
You know,
Because if you're a kid, you're like, I've heard of this Fergus McCann guy, but I don't really know him. Brian Dempsey, my dad keeps talking about Kellys and Whites, and I don't know who these folks are.
And it wasn't intentional, honest, but Bratback was, we hadn't won the league in 9 years. Ben like Bertie's at the Scottish Cup run, 65, hadn't won the league 12 years. And then this is about, well, we've just won the league, but actually we go through the pain for the next.
When do you do the play about the nice times, Jim?
No,
when do you do the?
it's always
When's
the
the
bit of
happy
it-
times?
Well, well,
Yeah,
because it's a comedy, then, I mean, actual fact, it'd be, this season, there's a lot of anger about, I think, anger's the main word, people are angry, and it'd be hard in 10 years time to try to play this season to make it a comedy.
I can
Where's
see,
the fun?
and if you know the history, part 2 coming up in about 10
definitely.
years'
It's
time.
Ross Desmond, huh?
No, but you would have to, because as I said, in the times of adversity and all that is when humour is born, and you would need to, because people, as you said, we're all getting fed up with it. It's exhausting. It's just like, I think there's no. It looks as if there's going to be no winner here, so we need to try and do something to bring.
Let's talk about Celtic in Europe, because that's a thing just now. That's part of the concern that Celtic don't push the boat out in Europe as discussed. But it's out with the big times, 67. There's a poster about 67 behind you, Jim, but out with 67. There's been some grim times historically for Celtic in Europe. Des, tell me about Neuchâtel Xamax in October 1991.
Well, that's featured in. I mean, Neuchâtel Xamax 5, Celtic 1. Do you need to say any more? And that was Liam Brady that said.
Brady saying the first leg.
Liam Brady said, "We hope to do all the damage." And we hope that it says.
Hope the tie's finished.
We hope the tie's finished in the first leg. Well, he was right, because it was finished. We get pumped 5-1. It couldn't be any more finished. That was it. And that just shows you, though. Now, I mean, I know they've had some poor results lately, but at that time, Neuchâtel Xamax.
Yeah.
You know,
I was looking them up today in advance of this. They themselves were only created in 1970. They were a merger between two different clubs. They still exist. They're playing around the second tier of Swiss football at this moment in time. But at that point, and keep in mind, the internet and WhatsApp groups and stuff weren't around in the way you were. You just thought, I've never heard of them.
Yep.
We'll hammer them and we'll head through. But a guy called Hossam Hassan had different ideas. He got 4 goals on the night and we were done for.
Hossam.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, so that just shows you, as I say, on the park, domestically, yes, at the moment, as Jim says, we'll probably get there. You know, I think that as well, but it's just 5th in the league back in 1989, and Billy McNeil, a legend, comes back, and and he gets pumped for Liam Brady. You're thinking this is people who don't know what they're doing.
And even, just in that game, Neuchâtel Xamax, Celtic had players like Paul McStay, Tommy Coyne, Charlie Nicholas, albeit the second time around Charlie Nicholas, but they also had Tony Cascarino, and that's the rub. That's where the problems came from. There was a photo doing the rounds just yesterday, actually, and it was Liam Brady presenting, I think it was Andy Payton, Rudy Vata and Stuart Slater as the big signings, and I actually liked Andy Payton. I thought he was a decent striker who kind of got a hard press, but he became
in a bad team.
He became part of that whole era, didn't he?
It's like Tommy Coyne could have been a really, but he was in a bad team as well, and Stuart Slater was, remember somebody described him as the next Jimmy Johnson at the time.
That was a hard balancing act back then. Having appointed Liam Brady, then to be fair, the board backed him with the money they didn't have. And he then pushed him into further debt, and it just got worse and worse. And I think they also said in the play as well that when the board get to the point that they're £4 or £5 million in debt, they should have been selling Paul McStay, they should have been selling Don Collins, because that would bring some money in and stave things up. But they didn't do that for some bizarre reason. And in the play, the old guy says, well, you can't do that, the fans won't be happy with it. The fans have nothing to do with it. We're about to go bust, and you have to take some action. And they didn't do that back then, and that's why things got worse and worse and worse. But yeah, I mean, again, you hire a rookie manager and you give him loads of money, don't get surprised how that ends up.
I know, who knew that a guy that has never coached before wouldn't be a success?
And then 10 years later, they repeat it with John Barnes.
Yeah,
madness,
that's true.
Madness.
Des, through the various plays, and you've worked with Jim for some time now, and bend it like Bertie, great success, and if the history is obviously kicking on to new success as well. You, from time to time, will bump into various different Celtic players and Celtic personalities, if you like. But I think you were talking to one of Celtic's oldest living players in recent times just yesterday.
Yesterday, doing a podcast, and it was we're all friends at the podcast, so can I mention it? Let me be frank, brilliant. McAvenny's podcast with Simon Houston, brilliant. Like yourself, it's a good setup now. But there was an old fella, lovely guy, a gentleman, and 91-year-old Peter Goldie. Old but gold.
Oldest living Celtic player.
Oldest living Celtic player. I mean, he was telling me about his last time he was gigging on in the Titanic and all that, and now he's that old. He's national insurance numbers 1, you know. But no, he sat and watched the whole podcast, and him and his family, Peter Jr. and lovely wife and all that. And they sat there, the three of them in the audience. It was like doing a gig at the Edinburgh Fringe again on a Tuesday. 3 in the audience, and that was it. But yes, he was there, and he was showing us all his memorabilia, and he was telling me that Bertie Auld got a £25 sign-on fee, and I says, I think you'll find it's a 20, and he went, no, sharp as a tack, absolutely switched on, the bold Peter. And it was lovely to meet him yesterday, yeah. And
he wasn't on the recording, he was just watching
no,
the guys do
he
your
just
thing.
brought down all his photos and memorabilia and all that, and he was showing us all, and Jim's into all that stuff.
I think he was keen to come on, but he was a wee bit nervous.
It's just anyway, yeah.
Des McLean's on, I mean, if Des McLean's
he won't get a word in, he won't get a word in.
What was very funny, he did his original contract signed by Jimmy McGraw.
Yeah, tell him that one out.
And you can sue his contract, whatever. And there was a clause that says that your contract could be terminated if either A, B, or C happens. And C was if you're palpably inefficient.
Yeah,
which means that was your shite.
Aye, the polite way of saying.
So I thought that's a Balakusha clause.
So when did he play? Like the 50s under Jimmy McGraw?
14 games in total, and a number of really interesting stories.
Oh, he played with McGraw and he played with Bertie.
Well, he played under Jimmy McGraw.
Okay.
So he did, yeah.
And he played mainly for the reserves, and he played about 14 times. But the most amazing story that he tells that it was the 56 Cup final. They're going to play Hearts, and on the Thursday night, he's told he's playing, and he's down in the official list as playing, and then on the Saturday he was picked, and he wasn't told why. In the match programme, there his name. He's no playing.
And Jim said to him, "Well, you know, raging me, you know, going tonto," and he just went, "No, nothing I could do about it."
Cup final day, he finds out he's not involved.
Final, Thursday before the cup final, you're playing. It's in the match programme. Goldie, number 4.
That's how he found out, wasn't it?
And he's in the programme, and then he said, "There's the team." The team list goes up, and he's no in it. And I was saying, "We don't go absolutely bonkers." He said, "No." In fact, he says, "I'd have played Smith as well." Thinking, it's a cup final.
So
take it inside. But yeah, great to me. I met Peter very briefly at an event. I think it was last year that Matt Corr put on for one of his Celtic books. And do you find it quite humbling to meet guys? Like, I know you've spent time with Bertie's family, for example, from the play. Do you find it quite humbling to be around, some of these people? Amazing,
and it's great when Celtic legends come along and see it. But the toughest gig when I was doing Bendel at Bertie, it was flying. We were doing this tour, and then we were doing Motherwell Concert Hall, which sadly is coming down.
Is it? Brilliant. The Civic Centre?
The Civic Centre, aye, brilliant. There's some great gigs in there. And Jim says, Bertie's family's going to be there. His son, Robert Auld, and all the grandkids and all that going to be sitting in the front row. And Robert, that was a tough gig because I thought, it doesn't matter how good I think I am. If his family are offended, then that's it. Yeah. Nothing else matters. If they go, we don't like. So I thought, it was brilliant. It was sold out months in advance, which is always good, creates a better atmosphere. And I thought it went really well, the gig. I thought it was good. But then, chap at the door, dressing room, Robert, he'd been greeting, right? I was like, they came down, they went, "Oh, you're my dad's double up there." It was brilliant. It was like watching them again. And I was like, "Oh, yes, that's a massive relief. That was it." And then he says, "What are you what size are you in a jacket?" And I was genuinely, well, the next day, he sent me a WhatsApp picture. He says, "Here's a wee present." And it was Bertie's Lisbon line blazer. He presented me with it on the Monday. I went down to meet him, and it fitted me like a glove, didn't it, Jim? I was expecting it to get took in or whatever. I'll get it fixed. I'll get the sleeve. Nothing fitted. The Cinderella moment, we called it.
Yeah.
And then the newspaper done a big piece on it, and it says, funny man Des gets a present from Lisbon line and that. And all the comments, it was fine when it was on the paper, but when it goes online, people, and it says, "Well done, Des, you've kept, Bertie's, the spirit of Bertie alive, and you've kept thinking, and Bertie will be playing, Bertie would have loved it, and the family loved it. What a lovely tribute. Well done." Right. And then, as usual, there's always the negative comment, like this, and it was a Rangers crest. And a guy went, "Des McLean is an unfunny, Fenian bastard." And I thought, unfunny, that's the order.
And that was that. What happened to the jacket? Where is that jacket? Do you still have it?
No, I sold it on eBay. Of course I've got it. Of course I've got it.
Pride of Place.
Could I tell him quickly about the guy? He loves this. I'm sure the punters will love this, right? It's Pride of Place in a safe. No, it's I've got it there. I wore it to Vegas when we've done.
Do you wear it down the Asda?
Well, I'll tell you one better than that then, right? It's better to say, "I'll tell you one better than that, son. Honestly, I kid you not. I promise you. Honestly. Big Jock would always say, you have the ability to entertain, Tino. Entertain. See podcasts. You're in the league of your own, son. Never mind all these others. See your dykes and all these guys. Couldn't lace your boots. Sorry. PJ. Right, so that's what Bertie would say if it was. No, I just used user. So these guys came to fit the kitchen, right? So it was a great start to the story. One of them was a pure Celtic fan, one's a pure Rangers fan, and they were just getting at that all day, right? Russell Martin's a dauber, and da-da-da-da, and down there, what do you mean? And Brendan Rodgers is off. All they did was argue all day. The wee Celtic fan, he was a pure mad Celtic fan, and he even had a Celtic vape. I'd never seen that. Like everything Celtic tarpaulin under that, Celtic trachea, and Celtic trainings, green Adidas, right? Pure Celtic through and through, right? And he had the vape. That's what got me. And he went, "Is it true that you have got Bertie Auld's Lisbon Lion blazer?" Yes. And I went, "Aye." He went, "Any chance you're getting a photo just for like Instagram and that?" No. I went, "Finish your kitchen and you'll get your photo." Right? No bother. Yes, Mr. McLean to you. No, right. And then I wrote the blazer down with the polythene over it, and he went, "Is there any chance can I touch?" And I went, "Yes, but just over the polythene." It's like the shroud of cheer. Genuinely, and he was like that. Right. So genuinely, and he was touching it over the polythene. And what a moment. My wife's looking, going, "What are you saying through that?" You know. So it just shows you even why he was a young boy, an apprentice, and he was like, wow. Because Bertie was a legend.
Absolutely.
The biggest Celtic personality of all time, let's be honest.
Yeah.
There was not a bigger personality. Great player, but, you know, so that was an honour. You're talking about meeting Celtic legends, but to play him and for him to give it the thumbs up was brilliant.
100%. Jim, in terms of the play itself, so Des has spoken about just the success of Bend It Like Bertie. I never got to see that. I did see Bend It Like Brat back. Bertie went to Vegas, you know, all those kind of things. What's the aspirations for, and if you know the history, the pavilion's a right step in the right direction. Do you feel it could go further, longer tours? What's your thoughts?
Well, I think I've started writing the follow-up to that, so I think this will be it. So this is your last chance to come and see it.
That's right.
Can you?
Because when you wrote it first, you were like, "I'm just writing this as a weekend anniversary number." Remember?
Well, I think because I was, I mean, obviously I came in to do the battle to save Celtic and been involved in a supporters campaign at the time, and having lived through it, you thought, I need to write this one because actually I've got a bit of knowledge of it. So and that was that. So that's why I was keen to do that. Excuse me. And that's it done. And then Des has taken it to a whole new level. In that originally, the working title was Bend It Like the Bonnet, and I thought, well, Fergus can, you know, not everyone loves Fergus, and it's not about Fergus, and that was that was the danger of the first two, because like Bend It Like Bratback, you say to people, actually, it's not about Harold Bratback. That'd be quite a short play. And then even Bend It Like Bertie, which is not really about Bertie Auld. It's another story
about family, but Bertie's.
Bertie's.
But also, you didn't want people to get mixed up. The title, you know, people don't read it nowadays. You know, they're all like, "Oh, I went to see that Bend It Like." So,
I went to see the Harold Bratback story.
yes.
Sure.
Let's look back at Harold Bratback.
I never met Harold, so that was good as well. So, yeah, what was the question? The question is basically that now written that, and at the start, the main character Tam wasn't how Des made him. We had to unfortunately cancel the first time it was meant to be on, and I rewrote the main part to Des, because he's basically Mork from Mork and Mindy, for older people who remember Mork and Mindy.
Robin Williams.
Heads full of mints type of thing. And going to the pavilion is a big thing. But after we do that, the next one I've got, which might be the last one I do, I don't know in terms of Celtic thing, you can only do so many of these. Although it's good fun. And
he always says it.
And then
the Tarantino of the Celtic play.
Aye, that Tarantino.
I think what makes it fun is actually not writing. I mean, you know your Celtic history and you write. So there's no reason why you couldn't write the Billy McNeill story, say, tomorrow. You know, you've read all the Billy McNeill books, you could do whatever it is. But for me, why would you have that play? Just buy the books. So it has to be more than that. It has to be about a family, a bit of fantasy, a bit of whatever. And that's what makes it fun. Because I think when people walk out the theatre, the objective is that they say, that's the funniest thing I've seen in a while. Not that was interesting about Celtic, or that was about whatever, that was the funniest thing. And then the nostalgia thing comes next. And kind of then the Celtic thing. So you've actually used Celtic to cheer people up, because we do live in a world that everyone's angry about everything.
Really?
So here's a chance for people to come along and have a laugh. And also, you said earlier, if you're younger and you don't know that period, it's factually correct in terms of all the things. And there's a phenomenal series, The Battle to Save Celtic, and there's tons of facts in that. And you interview 10 people or something, and they all tell you different facts. So how do you
alternative facts, they call them?
Alternative fact. So how do you then condense that into like an hour and 40 minutes or so, and cover all the facts, but but try and make it funny and try and have a bit of empathy with a family that's going through that, and it's their story, and it's Tam's story, because Tam's the kind of conduit, because basically I'm just back for the AGM, so putting that on a play, who wants to know about the AGM, and you'll have to kind of give a wee bit of facts about something about David Lowe's buying shares, and I'm out helping David Lowe, and so
yeah, Tam's, he's side by side with everybody all the way through it, right up to Fergus. But also, you don't know where these things are going to go. See, when you wrote this at first, we didn't realise how it was basically going to happen again. All this, it was going to come to this, come to a head. So now this is really topical again, and you just have things are. It's as if somebody's up there playing as all, playing a wee game. Because I was coming back from Vegas and I'm sitting next to Bertie Auld for 10 hours on a plane, 10, 11 hours, and he's sitting talking away to me. I remember the night, wee Jinky, we went for a pint. And I thought, then I'm playing him, and so you just never know how these things turn out. And then Jim messages me during lockdown, and then we become good pals, like all the same things. And then he's like, "Oh, do you like Jerry Seinfeld?" And that. We're sitting watching Seinfeld in Caesar's Palace a couple of nights after Brendan Bertie. So it doesn't get much better than that. Then we're sitting watching Barry Manilow for nothing, second row seats.
Couple of freebies.
Brilliant. Freebies as well.
Barry was freebies.
We gave him tickets for Brendan Bertie. He never came along. Don't give Barry Manilow tickets.
I didn't have Barry down as a big Celtic man to be fair.
So that was a good life lesson, but never get Barry Manilow tickets.
Never get Barry Manilow tickets. He'd not at the View and all that in his restaurant, but he just
Jim, is the challenge, I suppose, then, in telling what's a fairly well-known story, for a certain generation, but in a different way, finding that different angle, finding that character that, and Tam being the character that allows you to explore it in a different way. Is that the challenge for when you're writing your pieces?
Yeah, I think you have loads of ideas, and one idea I had at the start was somebody tried to do an impersonation of Fergus McCann, and it sounded like Groucho Marx. I thought, well, that'd be quite funny, having it's maybe you playing Groucho Marx, Fergus McCann type thing, and then you think, well, that's like a 5-minute joke, and it disappears. So you have to kind of bit by bit, and what you tend to find is when you start to write something, you get a different idea, and you're down a different path, or you find a fact out that becomes quite and that becomes a big thing, which you thought was quite a kind of small thing. Maybe somebody scored a certain goal, or somebody did something, whatever, and you think, oh, that's something. Maybe you do something with that. But yeah, it's having the kind of fantasy angle that actually makes it easier to be funny. And for anyone who's seen Brendan Bertie, and we can see this, I know it's a spoiler, but Bertie's a time traveller.
Right. Tim Lord and
Brendan Bertie. So he goes back in time and he's explaining how he came to be a Tim Lord and whatever.
The audience took that quite well. I thought they were all going, what's this shite?
What's this
But they didn't. They were all right with it. That's when they go with it. Just go with it. It's fantasy.
At that point.
Can you reveal anything about the one that you're currently writing? Can you give any hints towards what that'll be? How's the time?
60th anniversary of Lisbon.
Yes.
What date would that be?
27.
Right, okay.
Next year? The year after next.
And will you explore? So obviously a very well told, well known Celtic story. Again, is that the challenge then, finding the new angle on it?
Aye.
Have you found it yet? You have got it.
Yeah.
To be revealed in the months and years ahead.
Well, we'll get this one.
Well, let's do this one.
That out the way.
Bringing it back to this one, then there's a trailer which I think you guys are launching this week, and it's Des doing the voiceover. Obviously, it's a very 90s based thing. And
is it Des?
Is it Des?
No, listen to it.
I have listened to it. I played it last night. So it's in the Trainspotting style. And it's the whole thing about choose the Kellys, choose the Whites, choose Not the View, choose Save Ourselves, choose Cascarino, choose Sack the Board, choose The Game is Over, the Rebels have won, etc., etc. What does the 2025 version of that look like? Is it choose the Desmonds, choose Mikel Ange-Balakwisha, choose Sack the Board, maybe you can keep that one in, choose Celtic Fans Collective, choose statements, choose more statements, etc., etc. Will there be a 2025 version of this? I'm not doing that.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant.
Choose Tino.
The good thing about that is Trainspotting was such an iconic movie in the 90s, brilliant, and it's Scottish. And that whole thing, kind of suggests spiraling out of control. The whole train, they're all mad with it. And that's the way Celtic was going then, out of control.
Just to round off, and obviously we've covered all sorts of stuff, but the main focus is, the next iteration of Enough, the history, and that'll be in August of 2026.
Yeah, it'll be here before we know it.
Tickets on sale this week, Jim?
They're on sale.
They've been on sale.
Yeah, for you.
You just scan that. If you see one of these, they'll be. And also, just go onto the Pavilion website. It'll take you a few seconds on your phone, Pavilion website, and if you know the history.
We'll drop a link in the show notes as well. What night is Manilow going along? Is he going on the Friday? Or
I said we don't talk to him anymore.
He'll get back.
Manilow, I finished with him.
Done. He is done. But just to try and round off, obviously we know how it played out last time around in '94. Fergus sweeps into power, saves the day, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Where do you see it ending this time around? I know, just to bring it back to modern day, because there seems to be a stalemate going on just now. The immovable object are the Desmonds. They're going nowhere anytime soon. The Celtic Fans Collective and others continue to kind of take the battle to the club, but with no real end in sight. Where do you lads see it going? Do you see a happy ending somewhere along the lines? For a bit of funny play about this in years to come?
Like Michael Nicholson phones Brian Dempsey. That's how it works out.
But see, the irony is, see that statement that as I say, Dermot Desmond that on Brendan Rodgers. That's the kind of thing that Fergus would have said. He's a self-serving device of character. If you ask me, sorry, I'm sounding more like Sean Connery than Fergus McCann. So no, but you could, but we did not see that coming for Desmond. So I think it's all a bit messy at the moment. There was no need for a lot of the stuff going on at the AGM, but I don't know if we're going to get a happy ending soon, but I hope we do. Even Martin O'Neill said it. What can I say? I think it's very sad, very sad indeed. And absolutely. I wonder what Big Jock would have thought of that, absolutely.
I think you should start it and call it Statement the Musical.
Right? Statement the Musical. Do you see a happy ending somewhere, Jim?
I think it's going to be a long drawn out process,
and
I think there's going to be a lot of unhappy fans until something changes. And until the Desmonds change their mind, I just thought that you were at the AGM, obviously, and they don't read the room with this stuff. And you'd have thought anyone with a bit of common sense would have walked out at the start, take the red cards, take the booing, use the situation. I know you're not happy, guys, but we're here to what's best for Celtic. You'll get ample chance to ask your questions. If this goes on to 5:30 tonight, we'll answer your questions. So we've got some business to take care of. Let's get down to that. Whereas confrontational, we're going to adjourn, we're going to stop at 12:30, and then Ross Desmond does you're all a bunch of diddies.
I just thought, without turning this into an AGM episode, I do think it was a real opportunity for Ross Desmond to come out and say, hands up, lads, we've made an arse recently, but let's work together. Let's use this as the kind of line in the sand, and we can move forward. And it's a nice chance.
What do you go, Jim?
Also, the optics of Ross Desmond sitting there with his Celtic suit on and his Celtic tie on, reading a statement which is not really meant. That's not what's meant to happen. It would be the same as Brian Wilson asking his nephew to come along and say, "Going to kick the boy out. Give him a Celtic blazer, give him a Celtic jacket," and then Brian Wilson will make it. Nephew will make a statement for Brian Wilson about nothing. That's like,
people are saying that statement was engineered to kind of stop it so they could all dive and go, right, we're not going to. I don't know. I don't know. But do you not think there was a plan A, there was an A speech and a B speech? What if the audience were absolutely perfect and they came out and they didn't do all that? Surely he still wouldn't have said that to them. You're a bunch of billies, you're anti.
Speech A in this pocket, speech A.
Aye, because that's not right. So go for speech B. Why? Because there's a bunch of right, and that's it. So that's it.
But as we've discussed, that's maybe another play for another day.
Statement the Musical.
Statement the Musical. But just to close this one off, lads, your final thoughts, Des. I'm sure you're looking forward to getting stuck back into it. And if you know the history, and Jim, congratulations on taking it to the pavilion. Your own final thoughts on this one?
It's brilliant. I love working with Jim. He writes great stuff. We're good mates. And we said, as long as it's fun and we have a carry on and that comes across in the play, it's just, for me, it's just brilliant. Doing this, being a Celtic fan is a bonus. But Pavilion, my favourite theatre, incredible. Today, 4 nights in there. It is the perfect little stocking filler for any and every Celtic fan.
A shameless but perfect plug. So
comedy genius, yes, comedy genius.
Jim, your own final comments?
No, you're doing a comedy genius. You've had a wee taste of that today, and as I said, the most important thing is people come along and say, "Yo, that was really funny."
That's a good carry on.
Good carry on.
Brilliant. Listen, thanks to you both for coming in. Very best luck with the play. Looking forward to it next year.
Thank you very much, Tino.
Cheers. Thanks for having me.